And let's be clear, the extra spending Mr. Carney has asked Parliament's approval on is not for investments. It's for money that's out the door and gone forever, almost all of it on bureaucratic administration.
Pierre Poilievre brought the receipts and fact-checked Mark Carney and also some left-leaning journalists in today's press conference. Conservatives grilled the Liberals on their shady new accounting trick that smells a lot like, I don't know, is that desperation? Is that liar? I'm not quite sure. Maybe you can help me figure it out by the end of today's episode. I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated. Subscribe, follow, like, and comment your thoughts down below. We are up against the machine. CBC was just bragging about taking down an independent, right-leaning, conservative commentator on YouTube. So we got to be bigger than them, and I believe we can get there. Not for me either. I don't care. Listen, I'm doing my darndest here. I don't care about the views. I don't care about money. I don't care about any of that stuff. What I do care about is saving this country and opening the eyes of more people. So by sharing these videos, by talking about these ideas with people who you know, it goes a really, really long way. Also, Melanie Joly, she dreams of Canada being an energy and economic superpower, and wow, does she ever get roasted over the cold, hard truth with this one. All that and more coming up today on Over Opinionated.
I come to this House with one of the strongest mandates in the nation. And Mr. Speaker, do you know how I earned it? I promised to rip this place down to the studs and start rebuilding a country we can recognize again. The Prime Minister this week showed he's here to do the opposite. Behind the pageantry and parades, he disrespected the Crown by using the King to deliver a tired and empty speech, meant to distract Canadians from a simple truth. He's still stumbling forward on the heels of Justin Trudeau's failed record. Mr. Speaker, I have deep respect for our institutions, but what Canadians needed this week wasn't ceremonial flourishes, they needed substance. Not sentiment, but solutions. Not more speeches from elites in suits, but action for people in coveralls. The farmers, the builders, the rig hands, the parents wondering how they afford groceries and heat at the same time. Canadians are tired of being lectured. They're tired of being told everything is fine when they can see with their eyes that it's not.
That right there is the cherry on top. And I think it's also the reason why so many people, historic amounts of people, voted Conservative in this past election. And we're going to get a lot more into some of the details of that. I actually stumbled upon a post that somebody had made that just, it deeply touched me. And that sounds bad, but it resonated with me big time. And I really want you to hear it because I think it might with you as well.
But after a decade of mismanagement and division from the Liberal front bench, that promise is fading. Alberta separatism is no longer a fringe idea. I heard it at the doors more times than I can count. And I'll tell you plainly, Alberta staying in Confederation is not up to me, and it's not up to the Liberal government. It's up to the people of Alberta. And the Albertans know that they have options. If this House continues to insult, abuse, and neglect Alberta, if it refuses to treat our people and our industries with the respect that they've earned, then the future of this country is not guaranteed. At any moment, this government could lose the confidence of the House.
Speaking of Alberta and Premier Danielle Smith, she was actually at the TELUS Convention Centre in Calgary last night, and one of the people there had asked, how long are you going to allow Ottawa to stall the questions? And Smith replied with, Sunday. We'll give him till Sunday, and I'm only partly joking. She went on to say, for most of my time in this job, the Prime Minister doesn't show up. But with this new Prime Minister, he has met with us many times, and he's been Prime Minister for only a few short months. But he is coming to Alberta on Sunday to meet with the business leaders in the energy sector to get an idea of what Alberta wants. And so she essentially says, just following up here, I don't think we'll have to wait that long to find out whether his government is serious about changing its course, just a couple more days. Premier Smith had also emphasized during this speech that Alberta wants to be free from bureaucratic control from Ottawa. She actually repeated a couple of times, we want to be free. Andrew Lawton, who is a newly elected Conservative MP, had a pretty brilliant thing to say about this. And honestly, side note, but I am so impressed with the newcomers and the ones who I've gotten to hear speak so far. It is just wow, the level of intellect, the level of thoughtfulness and insight.
I also got into politics to make Canada a freer place. In the last decade, the Liberals have put freedom in their crosshairs in more ways than I could list in the time I have here. The Liberals have tried to, in their paternalistic fashion, censor what Canadians see and say online. The Liberals have told parents how to raise their children. They profess on one hand to support press freedom while banning independent journalists from even reporting on them, something that is a fundamental charter right in this country. These Liberals have threatened the charitable status of houses of worship and at the same time turned a blind eye to rampant vandalism and arsons of churches. Some actually turning a blind eye was not enough. They actively or tacitly condoned such actions. This is a party that has imposed Laurentian elite policies on communities that never asked for them, and I can tell you, having gone through this election, do not want them. Mr. Speaker, I am here to tell the Liberals that their assaults on freedom will not stand. I am putting them on notice, Mr. Speaker, right now.
What an awesome first ever speech in the House of Commons. And my, oh my, he just gets even saucier. Seriously, I am just so very impressed.
Unlike the Prime Minister, who picks whichever passport is most convenient in a given moment, I actually love Canada. Canada is the only country I've ever called home. It's the only country that I have any desire to be a citizen of. And it is an honor and a privilege to be a Canadian. I have always been proud of my country. I have always stood for my country. Unlike Liberals who wrap themselves in the flag when it is politically convenient, I am not a fair weather patriot. And we will always, on this side of the aisle, Mr. Speaker, stand up for Canada and be proud in our Canadian identity and proud of our country. This means being proud in the institutions of this place, being proud of our history, being proud of the people who built this country, and standing for those who seek to celebrate and preserve Canada. So I do not take the fair weather patriots, those with their newfound celebration of Canadianism, with their flags still creased and wrapped in plastic practically, as they seek to lecture Canadians on what it means to be an elbows-up Canadian. Mr. Speaker, I will always and have always waved the Canadian flag proudly, and I will not stand by while those who were denigrating people who did that years ago claim to have the moral high ground on what it means to be a Canadian now.
And speaking of that moral high ground virtue signaling, here is Lisa Hefner, who is a newly elected gal from Hamilton Mountain, Ontario.
I wore the red dress pin. I beaded myself under the tutelage of a master beater at an earlier event at the center. I clearly do not have my teacher's talent, but the process of beading was painful and intensely meaningful. Let's all take time this June to reflect on the history of Indigenous peoples and how we can advance reconciliation.
A new Liberal government. Is that what they say?
You got to hand it to them. Liberals are masters of symbolism. See, in the recent election, to convince people that they were no longer the party of reckless spenders, they abruptly replaced a leader who looked like a reckless teenage trust fund baby with a stern-looking banker. The jet black, carefully groomed hair replaced the uncombed surfer dude hairstyle. The corporate dress shoes replaced the childish running shoes. The MBA lingo replaced the dreamy rhetoric. The spend less, invest more slogan replaced the budgets will balance themselves rhetoric of Justin Trudeau. Wow, what a change. But do the numbers back up the symbolism? Well, we found out this week. Prime Minister Carney tabled his first spending package before the House of Commons, called the main estimate. See, government has to get the approval of the House of Commons to do any spending. So they put forward this package, and it will stack up against the previous Trudeau spending. And to be fair, Mr. Carney's spending is not as bad as Trudeau's. It's worse to start with. We know that he inherited a morbidly obese Liberal government, and he promised to, quote, spend less. But his first spending bill will increase costs by 8% more than Trudeau did in his last year in office. Let's get this straight. Justin Trudeau doubled our national debt and nearly doubled the cost of government. And Mark Carney was elected to bring those costs down, and in the first year after taking office, the year when you would expect him to take action against those out-of-control costs, he actually increased them by 8%. In fact, the spending will grow almost 3 times faster than the combined rate of inflation and population growth. It is a $500 billion spending bill with no budget.
You know what I think is the most enjoyable about Mark Carney's new plan that includes $486.9 billion of spending, which is over or just under $40 billion more from what the previous government wanted to increase our spending to. So that includes $26 billion on consultants. That also includes nothing, no biggie here, just a $42 million pay bump for the CBC. Kind of makes you wonder why they talk to the Liberals the way that they do. And also defense spending, which climbed to $1.79 billion annually. Just a reminder, though, in order for Canada to meet its 2% NATO target, it would need to be somewhere around about $40 billion. So doing the math here, if they just didn't hire $26 billion in consultants, or even just the $42 million bump for CBC specifically, not every Canadian media outlet, only the CBC, $42 million on top of the 1 point whatever billion that they already get every single year, we could actually meet our NATO target quite quickly. You know, the whole thing with consultants that just blows my mind, and I am fully in the belief that consultant fees, especially, like, I'm like, bro, we hired you to do the job. If you feel like you need $26 billion of advice in order to complete it, you probably shouldn't have gotten the job then. Like, that's a little outrageous. Don't you think? That sounds a little bit like, I don't know, maybe like some weird backdoor deals and money laundering. I don't know. I'm just going to throw that out there. The one thing that is missing from this massive increase in spending with no plan, no budget, by the way, is the $129 billion in election promises, which were not added to that list at all.
This week, Mark Carney introduced a $500 billion of spending with no budget. The first time that has happened in decades. Not only that, but he's increasing government spending by 8%, with the lion's share of that spending going to bloated bureaucracy, consultants, and contractors. Bureaucracy will go up by 6%. That's more than double the combined rate of inflation and population growth. Consultants are going to go up by 37% to $26 billion a year. The average Canadian family will now spend $1,400 on federal government consultants alone. Contractors get more money. And let's be clear, the extra spending Mr. Carney has asked Parliament's approval on is not for investments. It's for money that's out the door and gone forever, almost all of it on bureaucratic administration and other high-priced consultants. That is totally irresponsible. It's clear that Mark Carney is even more expensive than Justin Trudeau. This $500 billion spending bill will drive up inflation, interest rates, above and beyond what they would otherwise be, at a time when we've got a record increase in people who are unable to pay their bills. According to Equifax, delinquencies are up. The number of people missing mortgage payments is up. 2 million people are lined up at food banks. And we have desperation in the streets. People cannot afford an even more expensive Liberal government. And that is why I'm announcing today that Conservatives will vote against this $500 billion of inflationary, irresponsible, out of control Liberal spending.
But don't worry, guys, because the Liberals are giving you a 1% income tax break, even though they ran the entire campaign saying that Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives were dumb and stupid and it wasn't a plan to cut income taxes, and then they go ahead and do it at a much lower percentage.
I recall that Mr. Poilievre, when COVID began, his solution was, let's have a tax cut. His response with the tariff war and the revenue that the government is collecting from the retaliatory tariffs, he said, I'm going to use that to cut taxes.
And then brag about how much money it's going to save you, which, by the way, is about $840 a year when you factor all of that in. And that's for a 2-income family. So slash that in half if you are just a single income household.
We are cutting taxes for nearly 22 million Canadians, saving families up to $840 per year. And we eliminated the GST for first-time home buyers on new homes up to $1 million. We will continue to bring down costs, to fight crime, and create one Canadian economy.
You know what I think is really important to recognize? The fact that they say, oh, it's for people, whatever, if you're buying a home for the first time under $1 million. That is insane, okay? Like if you were to go anywhere else in the world and $1 million was the going rate for what a house would cost you, people would look at you like you're crazy. In the United States, as an example, $1 million house is like a mansion of a house, depending on where you live. Obviously, really densely populated areas are different. Whereas in Canada, $1 million house or something very close to it is like your basic starter home. That's how much it costs. That's insane.
The problem is so large, the housing problem is so large, that we need to catalyze a different mode of building a large number of homes, not all homes, but a large number of homes. And we can do that by building at scale ourselves first. More modular, more prefab, more reinforced timber, cheaper processes to build. We think we can build about 20% cheaper just in overall capital costs.
I wonder if our real crisis is not, in fact, we just need to build cheaper homes. Duh. Why weren't you doing that for the last 10 years? Maybe our problem is actually our own bureaucracy, our own processes in order to get things done. Could also be, as Bank of Canada confirmed, 1 million foreign students allowed into Canada by the Liberal government, which accounted for a larger share of workers in low-skilled occupations, replacing Canadian-born workers.
Let's be honest with Canadians. We don't need to renew the consensus on immigration, the one that's fueled the Liberal political ambition for a decade. We need to rebuild this country for Canadians. We don't need to gaslight working families into acceptance of out-of-control immigration while wages stagnate, house prices explode, and services collapse. We need to restore common sense and put Canadians first in their own country. We don't need more empty promises. We need paychecks you can raise a family on, homes you can actually afford, and streets you feel safe walking down. We need less gatekeeping, less government, and a whole lot more grit.
Could be that our housing has essentially been at a standstill, not because of anything other than policy, because people want to do things. But how on earth can you do something when the government is standing in your way?
The Liberals claim they want to make Canada an energy superpower, but they forget it's their record over the last decade that has decimated our energy sector and kept our resources in the ground. Their oil and gas production cap will kill tens of thousands of jobs and cost our economy $20 billion. Their industrial carbon tax will cost Canadian businesses and consumers and make Canada less affordable and less competitive. Their legislation, Bill C-69, is blocking energy infrastructure and making us more dependent on the United States. The solution is easy. Will the Prime Minister repeal Liberals' costly anti-energy laws?
We know that we are in a trade war that has been launched by the U.S., and we know that hardworking Canadians are feeling the grunt of this trade war, particularly in the manufacturing sector, particularly in the auto, steel, aluminum sectors, and we continue to fight for them. That's why we will make sure that we invest in them, that we work on making sure that we attract the investments across the world while making sure that we grow the fastest economy of the G7.
I would just reiterate, though, the government is not saying anything about the big problems. You have to get rid of C-69 because it blocks projects, and even if the government decides it's going to circumvent C-69 on individual projects, there will be dozens of other projects that we might not even know about because investors will not come forward as long as they risk having to face the worst approval system in the world. Get rid of C-69. The shipping ban. How are you going to have a pipeline to the West Coast if you can't ship from the West Coast? The idea would not even get off the ground unless you get rid of C-48, the West Coast shipping ban. The energy production cap means that future pipelines might not be able, the government of Canada might not allow enough production to fill future pipelines, which reduces the likelihood of a pipeline builder would come along and build it. So these sort of like picking 5 or 10 projects that the government favors it might be better than nothing, but it's not the solution that we need to get things built. We need to repeal C-69, C-48, the energy cap, the electric vehicle mandate.
And in this same press conference earlier today, a reporter quoted the Toronto Star, awesome, and decided to try to call out Pierre Poilievre for being a bad leader. And then she got severely fact-checked.
Are you worried about a challenge to your leadership, Mr. Poilievre?
No.
The Toronto Star actually, though, reported about a conservative advisor saying that you were the reason that your party lost. Are you the reason?
We got 2.4 million more votes, 25 more seats. We had the biggest vote count in our party's history, the biggest increase in our party's history, the biggest vote share since 1988. And we're going to continue to work to get over the finish line. Thank you.
I wanted to share with you, this is a tweet or a post made by Jinglei He, who wrote, "I don't want to hear any more people saying that Pierre Poilievre blew a 30-point lead, because he didn't. He peaked at around 47% right when Trudeau resigned and got 41.3% during the election. The question we should be asking is how the Liberal Party managed to go from 16% in the polls to 43% in 3 months, and whether or not the NDP secretly colluded with the Liberals by purposely sabotaging their own party just to stop a Conservative victory. We Conservatives also need to come up with new strategies and think outside the box in dealing with this new version of the united left. Otherwise, we may never win another election ever again." Pierre Poilievre was literally up against everything, and yet he still managed to retain 41.5% of the vote and earn the trust of 8.1 million Canadians. If you can do basic math, it means he lost roughly 5 to 7% of support due to the Trump tariff threats and lost many winnable seats due to other factors that were out of his control, such as the NDP purposely tanking their party, which significantly helped the Liberals. Pierre Poilievre ran one of the best campaigns ever, and I'm confident he will win a majority government in the next election. Conservatives will get the final laugh in this. Just watch.
As we are at a hinge moment in Canada's history, it is a more dangerous and divided world, unfortunately. Geopolitical risks are rising, and they are threatening our sovereignty.
No, they aren't. And I would also argue as a fact that the only thing that is dividing us is our own government. That's it, because that's how they win. That's very evident. And I'm pretty freaking tired of hearing, oh, the geopolitical, global, blah, blah, blah. Shut up. Please stop. Like, this is just a broken record. It's nonsense. And just because you repeat something a lot doesn't make it true. Grow up. Jeez. I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated. Subscribe, follow, like, comment your thoughts down below. And again, share this video, share these ideas with everybody that you can, so that we can, I don't know, have a Canada that we're really proud of again. That would be a nice thing to live in. I'll talk to you tomorrow.